In the center of the alien city stood the portal, a strange circle of blue and green light that hummed without sound and shimmered like water under moonlight. The portal had no name, but the people called it the mouth of nothing. They believed it led to a place where no one returned long ago. Many brave aliens had entered it. Some were warriors, some were explorers, some were fools. None came back, not even their bodies returned. Only silence followed, and so fear was born from silence. The elders placed glowing stones around it. They made laws. No one could go near the portal. No one could speak its name in public. No one could study its light, or try to touch its edge. Children were told stories about it to keep them away. The portal was not a place for games. It was a hole in the world, a place that should not exist, and yet it did, always glowing, always watching. Then one day a human came. His name was Ryan. He wore a long coat made of soft brown leather, and carried a small black bag with tools no one had seen before. His eyes were calm but sharp, like a blade made of thought. He walked into the city without fear. His voice was soft and steady. He asked only one question: where is the portal? The guards looked at him with shock. They asked who told him about it. He only smiled and said he saw it in a dream. They laughed. Some were angry, some just turned away. But one young alien girl named Velra watched him closely. She had never seen a human before. His steps were strong but quiet, like he was not walking on the ground but on the edge of something strange. The council told him to leave. They said he would bring danger to the city. They said he would awaken things that should sleep. He listened with respect and nodded, but did not walk away. Instead, he stayed near the edge of the city, close to the portal, sleeping in an old ruin, with no roof, eating food. He cooked himself, watching the stars like he was waiting for something. The portal glowed stronger that night. The wind was strange. It moved like hands brushing the stone streets. The lights in the sky shifted a little, like they blinked at a secret only they knew. Velra could not sleep. She walked to the ruin where Ryan stayed, and saw him standing at the edge of the portal circle. The blue-green light danced on his face, and his eyes were closed. She stepped closer, but he did not move. His breath was slow, his hands at his sides, like he was ready to fall into the sky. Then he opened his eyes, looked at her and gave a small nod. He said nothing. He turned back to the portal, and stepped forward. His foot touched the glowing edge, and the air changed. It felt heavy, like water made of memory. His body began to fade into light. His coat moved like smoke. His shape became part of the shimmer, and then he was gone. No sound, no scream, no flash, only silence, and the portal still glowing quiet and deep. Velra stood frozen. Her heart beat fast, but her body would not move. She waited for something to happen, but nothing did. She walked to the place where he stood. There was no heat, no scent, no trace. He was just gone, like a whisper lost in the wind. She looked around to see if anyone had seen, but the streets were empty, and the stars above were still. She ran to the council and told them what happened. They called her foolish. They said no human would be so stupid. They laughed and told her to rest, but she knew what she saw. She knew what the wind felt like when he stepped in. She knew something had changed. The next morning, the portal glowed brighter than ever before. It pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. The air around it felt warm and cold at the same time, and something new had appeared, a strange black mark on one of the glowing stones near the edge. It looked like writing, but none of the aliens could read it. Velra looked closer, and her hands began to shake. The writing was in human language, and it said, "I will find the truth." The city was silent for hours. No one came near the portal. The guards stood back, and the elders whispered behind closed doors. But Velra kept looking at the mark. She kept hearing Ryan's calm voice in her mind, like a soft echo in the deep part of her thoughts, and she knew this was only the beginning. She walked back to the ruin where Ryan had slept. His bag was still there, untouched. Inside was a small silver box. It opened with a soft click, and inside was a folded note. The paper was old and smooth, and on it were just 3 words: "You were wrong." Velra looked up at the sky. Her breath caught in her chest. The stars looked the same, but now they felt different, as if they were watching her, as if they too waited for what came next. And the portal kept glowing, never blinking, never silent, always calling. Velra could not sleep. That night the words in the note stayed in her mind again and again. You were wrong. What did Ryan mean? Wrong about the portal, wrong about the fear, wrong about what the elders taught her since birth. The silver box still sat in her hands, its edges cool to the touch. She closed it gently, placed it in her cloak, and stepped outside. The night air was thick. Clouds rolled across the dark sky like waves of ash, and the portal still pulsed, like it was breathing. No guard stood near it now. Even they were afraid to look at it. Velra walked carefully along the edge of the city, listening to every sound, but the night was quiet. Too quiet. She sat on a stone bench across from the glowing ring, her eyes locked on it, her body still. The portal seemed alive now, like it was waiting, like it wanted her to come closer. She did not move, but she did not run either. Then suddenly she heard it. A voice, soft, low and slow. It said her name. Velrish jumped to her feet and looked around. No one was there. No shadows, no wind. The voice had come from inside her ears, and yet it felt like it came from everywhere. The voice said her name again, and then it whispered something else. 3 more words. Still alive, watching, she ran back to her home, her breath fast, her hands shaking. She locked the door behind her and fell to the floor. Her heart pounded against her ribs. The voice had been his. Ryan, she knew it. She had only heard it once before, but she remembered it clearly. It was him, she thought. Maybe she was dreaming, maybe she was tired, but the echo had weight. It had truth. She opened the box again and stared at the note. What had Ryan seen in there? What was he watching now? And why could he speak to Hertha next morning? The council gathered at the center of the city. Everyone had heard the pulse of the portal last night, and some had heard voices. To one, young guard claimed he saw a shadow move across the edge of the light, like someone walking through it, not disappearing, but standing just behind the glow. He said it looked like a man. The elders dismissed him. They said, fear plays tricks on the eyes. They said it was just the portal reacting to the humans' foolish act. They said nothing had come back, but Velra was not sure. She remembered the sound of that voice. She remembered the cold tone in the 3 words. Still alive, watching, she returned to the ruin where Ryan had slept. She searched the area, looking for something, anything she missed before. Behind a broken wall, she found a strip of cloth caught on a nail, dark brown with a burned edge. It looked like the corner of Ryan's coat. She held it in her hand and felt a sudden jolt through her body. A flash of heat and sound in her head. A quick image, Ryan standing in a strange place with blue skies and floating rocks behind him, his eyes wide, not in fear but in awe, and then the image was gone. She looked around, but the street was empty. No one had seen her. The cloth no longer buzzed in her hand, but the feeling remained deep and cold inside her chest. She was sure now, Ryan was not dead. He had crossed into something beyond, and something there had answered him. She told the council again, but they grew angry. They told her to stop spreading fear. They threatened to ban her from the archives if she continued to talk about the human and the portal. She walked away without a word, but in her heart a new fire had begun to burn. That night, she returned to the portal again. This time she brought a scanner, one of Ryan's tools left behind in his bag. It was a small device with blinking lights. She had no idea how it worked, but when she pointed it at the portal, the lights turned green and made a soft sound like a heartbeat. She pointed it at the ground and moved slowly along the edge of the glowing ring. Suddenly, the lights turned red, and the sound changed to a sharp buzz. She bent down and brushed away some dust and dirt. What she found made her freeze. Footprints, human footprints, deep in the stone, and leading away from the portal, not toward it, away, like someone had stepped out, not in, and they were fresh, not cracked, not dry, not washed away by wind. The shape matched Ryan's boots. She was sure of it. She followed the prints, step by step, her heart beating faster. They led down a narrow path between 2 old buildings, toward a silent part of the city, one no one used anymore. Her steps slowed as she reached the end of the trail. There, on the side of a broken wall, was something carved into the stone. Alone, she stared at the words, her hands cold, her mind spinning. Not alone, it meant Ryan was here, and not by himself. Someone or something had come with him, or after him, or before, and whatever it was, it had left those words behind. The portal pulsed again behind her, and the wind picked up like breath on her neck. She turned and looked back toward the circle of light, her thoughts spinning, her fear rising, but also a strange feeling, a pull deep inside her chest, like something calling her closer, like something waiting for her to understand. Vela whispered one word into the wind, Ryan, and the wind whispered it back. The sky turned gray as mist rolled over the quiet city streets. Shadows stretched longer than normal, and the air felt thick, like something watched from just beyond the light. Velra walked with the silver box hidden in her cloak, her boots quiet on the cold ground, her eyes wide, scanning the corners, her mind full of questions. The words on the wall still haunted her. Not alone. She passed the stone wall again, where the human footprints had ended, the message still carved deep and sharp, not worn by time or wind, like something wanted it to stay visible. She touched the stone with her fingers, and the same chill returned to her skin, like touching something that should not be real. She looked down and saw something new, more footprints. But these were not deep, not bold. They were faint, as if left by a lighter step, and they went the other way, back toward the city center, toward the portal. Her chest tightened. She followed them slowly, each step careful. The mist grew thicker, and the silence louder around her. The city seemed to breathe. Lights flickered in the buildings above, and the clouds twisted without wind. The fog swallowed sound. Even her own steps vanished into it. Her heart beat louder than her footsteps, and then she heard it again, her name, not shouted, not whispered, but placed gently in the air. Velrush turned quickly, but saw no one. She stood still, eyes wide. Breath held. The fog moved around her, but no shapes appeared. Her hand gripped the small scanner Ryan had left behind. She held it up and pressed a single button. The green light blinked once, then twice, then turned red. She turned the scanner slowly in a circle. When it faced the east, the buzzing started soft, but steady. She moved forward toward the sound. The footprints continued into an old alley, with broken walls and rusted metal gates. One of the gates stood open, but bent at a strange angle, like something had forced its way through. From the other side, inside the alley, she saw it, a figure, tall and slim, standing in the mist, facing away from her, not moving, not breathing. Just standing. Its shoulders were broad, its coat long and brown, the same color as Ryan's. She felt her knees weaken. Her voice caught in her throat. She took a step forward, and the figure tilted its head slightly, as if it had heard her. Velra whispered his name, Ryan, and the figure turned its head slowly enough to show one eye glowing softly, not with fire, not with rage, but with something ancient and deep, like light seen through water. The figure spoke, and the voice was his, but it echoed, like from a cave, far away. He said, "You should not be here, not yet." Velra stepped closer, her voice shaking. She asked, "What happened? Where did you go? What followed you?" The figure turned fully now. She saw it was him, but not fully. Something in his face was different. The skin glowed faintly, like it was lit from inside. His eyes no longer fully human, but still kind. He said, "The portal is a door, but not just one. It is many doors at once. It leads to what we fear and what we hope, and to places not made for life." I stepped through and I saw them. I saw the old watchers, the ones who made the portal long ago. They do not live, they do not die, they only watch and wait. Asked, "What do they want?" He looked at the sky and said, "They want the portal open forever, not for one world, but for all. They feed on what comes through, and I was not the first." Velra asked, "How are you still alive?" He raised his hand and showed a mark on his palm. It looked like the portal itself, spinning light within skin. He said, "I made a trade my life for a way back, but it came with a price. I am not all human anymore. Part of me stayed behind." He looked at her and said, "They are awake now, and they know you. They felt your voice when you called mine. They know your name. They saw your mind. You cannot stay here, not near the portal. They will try to open it again from both sides, and if they do more, then I will return." Velra felt the weight of his words sink into her chest. She stepped closer and asked, "What can we do to stop it?" He reached into his coat and gave her something, a cube of glass with small lights inside. He said, "If the sky turns black and the portal sings, this will burn." It closed, but only once, and only if you are ready to lose everything. She took the cube with shaking hands. He turned to go back into the mist. She called out, "Wait, what if I go with you?" He paused and said, "You are not ready, not yet." And then his shape faded into the fog until only the silence remained. Vela looked down at the cube. Its lights pulsed like a heartbeat. Her fingers closed around it. She knew now that this was no longer a legend, no longer just a human story. The portal was waking, and she had become part of its memory. The city slept under pale stars, while the fog wrapped around every corner like a quiet ghost. But Velra could not rest. Her eyes stared at the glass cube on her table. Its lights pulsed slower now, like the breath of something sleeping too deep to wake. Her fingers hovered above it, afraid to touch, afraid to disturb the strange rhythm. The words of Ryan still echoed in her mind. "They are awake now. They saw your mind." She stepped out into the night, again pulled by a strange force inside her chest, the cube hidden once more in her cloak. The streets were empty. Not even the guards walked tonight. Maybe they too felt what she felt, a quiet dread, a sense that something had returned, and not alone. As she neared the portal, its glow had changed, no longer blue-green but pale white, and shifting like clouds passing over the moon. It did not pulse like before. Instead, it whispered the sound, low and dry, like wind through dead leaves. It made her stop, her breath tight in her throat. Suddenly, she saw movement across the plaza, not fast, not loud, but slow, like something exploring the edges of its world. A tall figure stepped into the light of the portal. Ryan again, or someone shaped like him. His coat moved as if caught in a breeze that did not exist. His eyes glowed, but dimmer now, like stars, nearly gone. She whispered his name, but he did not answer. Instead, he walked to the edge of the portal circle and knelt, placing his hand on the stone. The glow beneath his fingers changed to red, then back to white, as if reacting to his touch, like it remembered him. Velra stepped forward slowly, not wanting to break the moment. Her voice low, she asked, "Is it you, really, you?" The figure stood and turned, his face still held his human features, but thinner and stretched, as if time had pulled at his skin. And not gently. He spoke, and the voice was softer now, like it traveled across great distance. "Yes, it is me, or the part of me that returned." She asked, "What is happening?" Now, why is the portal changing again? He said. Because they are ready now. They have seen our world. They have tasted our fear. They know your people do not guard the door well. They know the door can be opened from both sides, and I brought that knowledge with me without meaning to. He walked toward her, the air around him colder than before, like every step carried frost in memory. He said, I tried to hold them back. I tried to seal the path, but it is too late for silence now. Only action remains, only choice remains. You must decide what kind of end you will allow. Vola asked if they were coming through now, if the Watchers would step into this world, and he said not yet, but soon. They wait for one last sign. The portal needs something human too. Fully open, not just flesh, but will and belief, and I fear I have given them both, without knowing. She told him about the cube, and his eyes narrowed, not in fear but in sadness. He said, I hoped I would never need to give that to you. I hoped the portal would sleep longer, but the signs are clear. The sky is already changing. Look closely, and you will see the stars are wrong. Velera looked up, and her breath stopped. Some stars had moved, not far, not fast, but enough to break the patterns she had learned since childhood. Constellations, broken lines, rewritten as if someone had taken chalk to the night and drawn new paths. He said, the world you know is being rewritten, not by war, not by death, but by the return of memory, ancient memory that should have stayed buried. They are not gods, they are not demons, they are record keepers, and this place is now part of their archive. She asked what she should do now, if she should warn the council, if she should flee. He shook his head slowly. No one will believe until the light takes them, until the sky breaks. They will not move until they see what you have seen, and by then the portal may already be open. Velra looked back at the white glow and felt something shift inside her, a strange warmth like hope buried in snow. She said, if there is still time, then I will use it. If there is still a way, then I will find it. And if there is still a door, I will decide who walks through. He smiled faintly, the glow in his eyes softening. He said, you are braver than I was when I stood here the first time. Perhaps that is why they fear you even now. Perhaps you are not just a watcher, but a writer of what comes next. She stepped closer and reached out her hand. He placed something in it, not the cube, but a thin strip of metal etched with symbols unknown to her. It hummed softly. He said, if you face the door again, this will remind you that you are real, even when the world forgets. Then he turned and walked into the glow again. No scream, no flash, just silence and light. The portal shimmered once more, then steadied its hum lower than before, like a voice holding its breath. Velra stood alone, the metal warm in her hand, the cube safe in her cloak, and the sky above, full of broken stars, waiting. Morning never truly came. The sky remained dark with shades of purple and gray, like twilight trapped in place. The sun did not rise fully. It hovered behind thick clouds that did not move. Velra walked through the city with quiet steps, her cloak drawn tight around her, the cube and metal strip safe inside, hidden but heavy, like secrets too large for her heart. The people spoke in hushed voices. Some said the stars were sick, some said the weather spirits were angry, but a few began to whisper about the portal again. Some had seen shadows near it, moving slowly, as if testing the edges of this world. Others said they heard a low hum in their dreams, a sound that made them wake with cold sweat and no memory. Valra returned to the council chamber with the cube in her hands. This time she did not ask for permission to speak. She placed the glowing cube on the long table and said one sentence. The human came back, and he was not alone. The elders stared at her in silence at first. Then one asked how she got the cube, another asked where the human was now, and a third asked what she hoped to gain from lies and fear. She pointed toward the sky and said, look, the stars have changed and the portal is singing again, and none of you are listening. The head elder stood slowly, his voice low and firm. The sky changes, the stars shift. This is not proof of danger. The portal has stood for 1,000 years and we still stand with it. Let this fear pass. It will not touch us. Vilra took the cube and left, their voices echoing behind her, but their words no longer mattered, not when the sky held such silence, not when the air itself had grown to still. She walked toward the portal one more time, and found the guards gone, the area empty, the glow brighter than ever. She sat near the edge, the stone warm beneath her fingers. She pulled the metal strip from her cloak, and placed it beside her. It pulsed gently, not with light, but with feeling, a deep rhythm that echoed in her chest like distant drums. She waited for something, anything, and then she heard it again, her name this time, not a whisper, but a clear voice. Velroche turned and saw him standing across the circle. Ryan, his shape more defined now, but still not fully whole. His coat moved like smoke in the breeze, and his eyes still held stars that did not belong to this world. He stepped forward and said, the Watchers are stirring. They know this world is soft. They know it is afraid. They will not stop unless you stop them. Velra asked how she could stop something that lives beyond time, something that feeds on memory. And will, he said, the portal is their mouth, but also their mirror. If you can show them a world not ruled by fear, they will turn away. But if they see only panic and silence, they will enter and take all that makes your people alive. She looked at the cube in her hand. The lights now blinking faster than before. She said, what if I fail? What if showing hope is not enough? Ryan said, then I will help you carry the weight of what comes next, but only if you still believe that your world is worth the pain. Suddenly, the sky cracked. A thin line of red light tore through the clouds like fire across silk, and the ground beneath the portal shook. The glow turned crimson and the hum grew louder, like voices chanting words not meant for ears. Ryan looked at the sky and said, they are her. Revera stood and faced the portal, her hands steady, her eyes locked on the spinning light. She raised the cube and the strip of metal together, and the air bent around her. The wind stopped, the sound stopped, even the shaking paused, and in that silence, she spoke. She said, this world is not perfect, but it is mine, and we will not give it to youth. Portal screamed, not with sound but with force. A blast of heat and light burst out, but she did not step back. The cube grew hot in her hand, and the metal strip began to sing a song without words, a song made of memory and promise. Ryan stood behind her, his voice strong. He shouted, speak your truth, and it will stand. Velra closed her eyes and spoke of her world, not as it was, but as it could be. She spoke of courage in small hearts, of kindness in quiet places, of hands held in darkness, and stars seen through tears. She spoke of all that made them more than what the Watchers expected. The light flickered, the red turned to gold, the shaking slowed, the sky mended, the crack closed, and the clouds parted just enough for sunlight to break through, thin but real. Ryan stepped forward and placed his hand on her shoulder. He said, they heard you. Velra opened her eyes and saw the portal calm, its glow soft, its hum silent. The cube no longer burned, and the metal strip returned to stillness. She stepped back, her knees weak, but her heart strong. The portal remained, but now it watched, not with hunger, but with silence. Ryan looked at her with something close to peace, and said, you are no longer just a witness, you are now part of the story that holds the sky together. And then he faded once more into light, leaving behind only the wind and the smell of stars. Asterisk. The sun rose at last, but its light felt thin, like a distant memory scattered across a sky that still held the scent of storm. The city woke slow and quiet, no birds, no morning bells, only soft voices and long shadows. Velra sat by the edge of the portal, again her cloak wrapped around her shoulders, the cube resting beside her, the metal strip in her hand, both silent, both waiting. She had not spoken to the council. Again they had locked the chamber doors, and no word came out, but people whispered in the streets about what she had done, how she stood in the light, how the sky cracked and then healed, how the portal quieted when she raised her hands. Some called her brave, others called her cursed, but all eyes turned. When she passed, all hearts beat faster. When she neared the glowing circle, the portal now shimmered softly, not in red or white, but in soft gold and deep blue. The air around it no longer screamed, but hummed like an old song that no one remembered, but everyone felt it still called to her, not with fear, not with power, but with promise, and that promise pulled her every night, every morning, every breath. Then Ryan came again, not from the light, not from the fog, but from the crowd. He stepped forward in daylight, with his hood lowered, his body still touched by otherworld light, but more solid, now more real. His eyes met hers, and she knew he had something final to say. He sat beside her on the stone, both silent for a time. Then he said, the portal is listening, but it still hungers. It is not alive, but it is not dead. It waits for a choice, and that choice must be made now. She turned to him and asked, what choice? What more can be done? Looked to the sky, which now held only half the stars it once did, and said, the portal can still be shut, but not by force, not by fear, only by will from inside. Only a soul that has crossed both sides can seal it and not return. I walked through and came back. Now I must go again, and this time close the door behind Mesh. Shook her head, her voice soft. Not you, not again. You already gave too much. But he smiled and said, it must be me. I left it open. I brought the Watchers. I broke the first silence. Now I must be the one to restore it. The portal chose me long ago. I just did not know it until it was too late. Velra held the cube tightly, her hands trembling. She said, there must be another way. Maybe the council can help. Maybe someone else can. Go. Ryan placed a hand on hers and said, no one else has walked as far as I have. No one else has seen the first world. The Watchers will only listen to one who remembers their true names, and I do. The wind picked up then, not cold, not warm, just full, like the breath of the world passing through time. Leaves scattered across the ground, and the portal pulsed once more, soft light rising around them. Ryan stood slowly, and removed his coat, folding it gently, and placing it on the stone. He said, if the sky breaks again, if the stars fall, use the cube not to fight, but to remind them of the light you gave me. Velra rose with him, her eyes bright with pain and strength. She reached for his hand and placed the metal strip into it. The song of memory sang again for one short note, then faded. She said, "You are not alone, not now, not ever. The story remembers, and I will remember too." He stepped to the edge of the circle, the portal glowing brighter now, as if recognizing his return. His shape flickered, but remained, his voice still strong. He turned one last time and said, "Tell them, I did not die. Tell them, I chose to stand between what was and what might be. Tell them the human did not fear the dark." And then he walked into the light, slowly, calmly, his body turning to shimmer, his hands raised to the stars. The cube in her hand blinked once, then dimmed. The portal pulsed once more, and then the glow faded, the circle dark, the hum gone, the stone cold. The people came slowly after that silent gathering. Near the circle, eyes wide, hearts still. Some wept, some whispered, but none turned away. Velra stood before them and said he went through not to escape but to protect, not to flee but to finish what no one else dared. Begin. The portal remained closed, its surface now like still water frozen in gold. No sound, no call, no danger, just quiet, a deep, endless quiet, like the breath before a song, like the space between stars, waiting for the next chapter, waiting for a voice to rise. Again, and Velra walked away, her cloak heavy, her hands empty, her heart full of names and stars, and one last promise she would keep until her own last step. The city moved differently now. The streets were slower, the skies clearer, but beneath every smile lay quiet tension. The portal no longer glowed, it sat like a stone circle, cold, smooth, silent, as if it had never pulsed, never shimmered, never cold, to the edge of time. But everyone knew better. Velra walked the same path each day, the cube in her cloak, unmoved, the metal strip around her neck like a whisper of old songs she no longer heard. The children asked her why the sky looked kinder, why the wind carried warmth instead of fear, and she answered with soft words, the kind that left space for wonder. People stopped calling her cursed, they began calling her keeper. Some brought gifts, some offered prayers, but she refused them all. The only thing she accepted was their attention, their questions, their belief in what they could not touch, and what they had nearly lost one evening, as stars returned to familiar places. She stood near the portal once more, her eyes lifted to the sky, and there it was. A small flicker of red, not a crack, not a scream, just a single line blinking near the horizon. Like a heartbeat starting again, the cube in her cloak warmed, then blinked once, then again. Velra stepped back, her heart steady, but her breath caught. She knew this sign, Ryan had warned her of it. If the sky turns red, if the light returns from beyond, use the cube not to fight, but to remember, to remind the watchers of the truth, of what once stood against them. She took the cube into her hands. It pulsed, strong now, awake again, but calm. No danger yet, only presence. She turned to face the gathered people. Some had followed her, others had already come. They saw the red flicker to their faces, quiet, not with fear, but with memory. They remembered the silence, they remembered the scream. Velra spoke loud enough for all to hear. She said the portal was closed but never erased, its purpose still rests beneath stone and light. What comes now is not war, but recognition. They are watching again, and we must decide what they see then. The portal shimmered not like before, not gold, not blue, but clear as glass, and inside they saw something they had not expected. Not monsters, not watchers, not shadows, but stars, thousands of them swirling together like a sea of light, and in the center stood Ryan. He looked just as he did before, strong, calm eyes filled with the space between worlds. He did not speak, but raised one hand and pointed toward the people. Then he placed his palm over his heart and slowly knelt. The stars behind him slowed their spin and began to dim. Soft. Velra stepped closer, her voice firm. She said, "He gave everything, and in return they listened. Now we give something back, not fear, not pain, but the truth of what it means to stand and not run, to speak and not bow." She raised the cube and pressed the center. The metal strip on her neck began to sing again, the same deep note it had sung once long ago, and then her voice rose into the still air, clear, strong. Human and alien together, she spoke of Ryan, of the journey, of the watchers, of the choice, and the cost. The light inside the portal grew soft and spread across the circle. A wave of gold warmth, light, not sharp, but gentle, like morning after a long storm. One by one the people stepped forward. They placed their hands on the edge of the stone, and whispered names, names of those they had lost, names of those they still carried. Velra placed the cube down in the center of the portal, and stepped back. It pulsed once more, then faded. The stars inside vanished. The image of Ryan dissolved like mist. The surface turned to stone once again, flat, cold, quiet, but different now. Not dead, not closed, just resting. The people stood in silence, then turned and walked back to their lives, each carrying something unseen, a memory, a promise, a hope. And Velra remained last, her hand brushing the edge of the circle, her eyes on the sky, now full of proper stars. She whispered thank you to the wind, not expecting a reply, and none came, but the breeze shifted just slightly around her cloak, like fingers brushing fabric, and she smiled. That night she sat in the old ruins where Ryan had once slept, the sky above steady, the cube quiet at her side, and in the silence she wrote, not a report, not a warning, just a story of a human who walked through light, a city that listened, a door that opened, and a girl who chose to believe on, far beyond that sky somewhere. Between memory and silence, something listened, and did not look away.